Yes, good afternoon, friends. It's a pleasure having you this afternoon in our class. And today I want to talk about principles of questionnaire design. Some researchers actually call it questionnaire construction. And so this afternoon I want to welcome you to our interesting and fascinating topic of discussion that we want to look at today. Yes, as you are aware that many of our researchers do make errors at the start of their research, at the point of questionnaire design. This is where many researchers actually err, especially when they do not know what exactly should be done in the design of the tool to be used. As you're aware, as we have discussed earlier, questionnaires are widely used in research. They help to correct standardized data, and therefore the way you design them from the start will actually influence the kind of data you receive. So poorly designed questionnaires lead to inaccurate results, and we always say garbage in, garbage out. So the kind of questions you phrase, the kind of questions you design will actually determine the kind of results you get. But many times, if a questionnaire is poorly designed, then you expect that you will actually get very inaccurate results. Questionnaires, particularly in our area here in Uganda, they are widely used in non-government organizations, in government agencies, when they are conducting surveys, in academic research, like what we do here. Let's talk about these principles. What is it that one must avoid, one must actually do to ensure that you design a very good questionnaire? I want to begin with the first principle of questionnaire design. One is clarity and simplicity. As you begin to design your questionnaire, you need to bear in mind that you start with simple and clear questions before you move to sensitive questions, before you get to the complex ones, those that would call that are hard. And as you start with those simple questions, for example, about sex of the respondent, the levels of education, you are trying to build the rapport, and this helps to establish the confidence within the respondent, but also to build that relationship where the respondent is able to answer your questions properly well. The second is the precision. Here we are talking about the questions must be short and precise, but they should be sufficient to address what you intend to actually address. In this case, you have the research objectives. So when we say that the questions must be short and precise, they should be able to bring out, they should be able to bring out what actually you intended to achieve. Number 3, we talk about question relevancy. In here we are saying whatever questions you phrase, whatever questions you put down, they must be able to answer your objectives. They must be able to answer what you've stated as your variables of the study. Remember, when we say variables of study, I hope we understand that these are elements of the study that have capacity to change, and therefore the objectives, you have already stated them, so you want to be able to phrase questions that are relevant to the objectives you intend to address. Okay, and they should also be relevant to the respondent. You don't ask strange questions that cannot actually speak to the respondent. So you must be able to formulate questions that answer the objectives, the variables of the study, but also they can be able to speak. They are relevant to the respondent. Number 4, we talk about the question order. The way how your questions are logically arranged. that chronology is very important. You must actually have them in that sequence, from the simple questions to the complex one. Before you go to those general questions, you need to start with those that are specific, those that are simple for someone to understand. Then as you move on, you're able to build that relationship. You want to begin with filter questions. For example, if you wanted to know, do you have children? Yes and no. If yes, then you can move to another question. If no, then you may want to ask, if yes, how many children do you have? You want to ask, do they go to school? But you should be able to build that logical progression of questions is very important. The fifth is about question content. Question content. And when we talk of question content, okay, I want to adjust this so that we are able to see it clearly. Okay, I wanted to do this. I noticed that that part was not clearly seen. Yes, so the question content, this is about the wording, how you phrase these questions. And so it's important that you avoid offending the respondent. And these are the questions that at times offend the respondents. For example, we talk about ambiguous questions with several meanings, so many meanings. For example, who are you? Or what are you? Are you trying to find out in terms of education levels, in terms of the tribe? Are you trying to look at the relationship? Are you trying to look at what this person does in terms of occupation? So it's important. Such a question. Double-barreled questions. These are questions that have two or more meanings in one. So you ask one question, but when actually it has more than actually one meaning. For example, are you married and do you have children? I think the best would have been to first find out whether the person is married before you go to children. So when you have questions, one question having two, requiring you to answer, requiring to have more than that response, you should avoid it, because one of the question could be answered and the other left. But also there are high chances that the person is not married and has no children. Yet actually you should have started with, do you have children? Yes. Okay, are you married? Yes, I'm married. Or even single, because there are people who are not married but they have children. So for you to be able to clearly get information, you want to avoid double-barreled questions. 3, among the issues you should avoid is leading questions. These seem to be guiding the response in a specific direction. So you want to avoid any question that will actually, lead the respondent to a certain direction. For example, these are bad examples I've stated here. Do you agree that government programs are helpful? So do you, it is a leading question. Already it's like you want this respondent to say, yes, government programs are helpful. Yet that might not be what you intend. The best way to answer this, to ask such a question is, how do you rate government programs? That is better. It doesn't lead someone to begin thinking, this is what you intend to me to answer. This is what you want me to answer on your behalf. Then the second example I've given here, don't you think the NRM government has done a good job? I think the best way to ask such a question would also be, how would you rate NRM's performance? This will help the person to be able to rate based on what they actually know and what they actually intend to. Then the other questions you need to avoid are what we call the presumed questions. You assume that the respondent actually, for example, here I've given an example. How often do you attend church? Unless you're very sure that this person does actually go to church. But when you say, when you presume that the person goes to church. So what would have been the first question? The first question would have been, do you go to church? Do you attend church? And if the person says yes, then you proceed to ask a question of how often do you attend church? That becomes a better way to respond, to ask. The other question to avoid is abstract question. Are you happy with the lectures, for example? Are you happy with the lectures? And so this is a bit strange. What if someone is not happy? What do you say? What if I'm not happy with the lectures? So when you say abstract, are you happy? And someone may not even be able to, for example, if I'm interacting with you students, you wouldn't actually be able to say no because of several other factors. Too many questions may depend, of course, on the nature and the complexity of the study you're doing, but you want to avoid too many questions. An interview, the data collection where the person will need 1 hour plus to fill in this tool, it becomes very, very, boring. So you want to avoid that. But also, what is very important that you need to understand among the other principles is the type of questions. The type of questions. There are questions that are open-ended, and we have also questions that are close-ended. Therefore, friends, in our next segment of our class, we will look at open-ended and closed-ended questions. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please go through this. I hope our next segment will pick from there. Thank you so much. May God bless us all.